Anybody wants to help?
Yeah, I'll look.
What is
I'll
it
look
called
into it.
again?
Well, we Googled Srila Prabhupada prayers of Queen Kunti and it didn't come up.
Oh, let me see.
Him singing, yeah.
How about just prayers of Queen Kunti?
And it got all kinds
Or
of
just Prabhupada prayers of Queen Kunti?
that too. I don't know. It's so
Prabhupada
annoying.
chanting prayers of Queen Kunti?
We did all that. I did
You
that.
did?
More than one. More than one. Is there more than one?
Morning, Haridas.
This one.
Well, that's him?
Morning, Haribol.
Hey, you all. Okay. We're good.
Whoops.
I'll keep looking. I mean, there's all kinds of other people singing it. It's not.
Are you all going to be recording this?
Yeah, Facebook and YouTube.
Oh, you could.
Agyanam Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksuranmalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tudalai Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya. What is that static?
I have no idea.
Could it be people's phones on? Namo Namah Yam Pravajantam Manupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano. Can you make it louder? Virakataruhajuhava Putriti Tanmayataya Taravo Benedus Tam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi. It's not working anyway. I sound the same with the mic and without it, and it's just making static. So can I have the Chinese mic in my room?
Yeah.
Did you find it?
Found it.
Let's see. Well, the thing is, this isn't necessarily him chanting all the prayers. He's just giving a lecture on one of her prayers.
Okay.
But you're getting closer. So we want Prabhupada chanting Queen Kunti's prayers. First, I offer my unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Diksha Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Astotra Sat Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, and the same unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Shiksha Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Astotra Sat Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta, Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, to all of our Gaudiya Guru Varga and all the assembled devotees. Today, we promised you that we were going to play Srila Prabhupada's prayers, chanting Queen Kunti's prayers in his beautiful, heartfelt manner. But so far, we couldn't find it. So we will keep looking. And in the meantime, we will continue with our reading. As you may remember, Aswatthama, the cruel associate of Duryodhana, killed the 5 sleeping sons of the Pandavas. And by the suggestion, request of Draupadi and the unanimous support by Maharaj Yudhisthira, Krishna, and others, they decided not to kill him, but to kill him and not kill him at the same time. They weren't going to kill his body because the reason that his mother, Kripi, didn't do the sati rite or voluntarily walk into the fire when her husband, Dronacharya, was on the funeral pyre was because she had a son, and the son represents the father. So she had a representative of her husband, so she didn't do the rites, but her husband would be considered dead if the son died. Plus, Draupadi was concerned that she was wailing and weeping with untold grief for her son's deaths. So Kripi would be the same way. So the unqualified Brahma Bandhu, or son of a Brahmana, he's not to be killed, but some punishment would be given. So they shaved his head and took off a very special jewel on his head, which signified like another birth. So they killed one of his births and humiliated the other one. Because as it says in the Gita, for one who has been honored, dishonor is worse than death. So then, because they let him live, he did his mischief again when Krishna was, now that the battle was over and now that they cremated all the dead and had their burial ceremony, Krishna was ready to go back to his own city, Dwarka. This was in Hastinapur. So when he was on the chariot, Uttara, who's the son of the daughter of Arjun, one of the Pandavas, she ran to Krishna and begged Krishna to save her son who was in her womb, Maharaj Parikshit. So Krishna entered inside the womb and covered the embryo with a protective power of his. And that's kind of where we left off, except that now Krishna's ready to leave, again, sitting on the chariot, and Queen Kunti approaches him. This is all being told by Sutta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya, 88,000 sages headed by Shonaka. So Queen Kunti is now approaching him because she doesn't want him to go. So we're going to be reading the series of her prayers. I believe we're up to chapter 8. And chapter 8 has very beautiful verses from Queen Kunti. These, her prayers are considered as good as scripture. And each one has a lovely purport too. But I didn't mark my place, so I'm taking time to find it. Okay, so
I had us at verse 18.
18 of chapter 8. Thank you. Yes, that's where I have my marker. Thank you. All right, so now Parikshit Maharaj was saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra. Krishna is ready to leave. And meanwhile, Kunti, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons and Draupadi, that is all the Pandavas, but she's the spokesman, addressed Krishna as he started for home. Kunti uvacha namaste purisham tvadyam ishwaram prakrite param alaksham sarvabhutanam antar bahir avastitam. Srimati Kunti said, O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You exist both within and without everything, inside and outside of everything. Yet you are invisible to all. Amazing. Maya Javani Kachanam Agya Doksham Doksha Jamavyayam Nalakshyase Mudadrisha Nato Natyadaro Yata. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of diluting energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So this morning we were learning the verse from Bhagavatam 2:9-33. Aham evasam eva. Great. Krishna told to Brahma that before the creation, only I existed. Now, during the creation, whatever you see is only me. And after the annihilation, only I will remain. Just, he's everywhere, inside and out, but he's invisible to all, means all unqualified viewers. Just like an actor who's wearing a disguise is not recognized for who he really is. Text 20. Tata paramahangsanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidanartham katam pasyema hi shriya. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? So he's descended to propagate transcendental science in the hearts of those who are advanced, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. So how can we? She's being very humble here. Pretending to be an ordinary materialistic woman, whereas a woman who's Krishna conscious is the topmost transcendentalist, the topmost intelligent. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and other cowherd men of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Namat Pankajamalane, Namag Pankajane Traya, Namaste Pankachangraye. My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower. Nobody found anything yet, right?
No.
I looked at it, but
I'll look
it might be
today.
buried.
Hmm?
There was a long series of classes given by Prabhupada. It might be buried in there somewhere.
Buried, yeah. I'll look too. My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked, welcome, with a depression like a lotus flower. You know that? Krishna's navel, his expansions of expansions of expansions of expansions of expansions. Garbhodakshai Vishnu has a navel that's shaped like a lotus flower. And inside the lotus flower, usually a lotus flower is in a lake, but there's a lake inside his lotus flower, like navel, from which another lotus flower, Lord Brahma's lotus flower, grows, and then Brahma is seated on top of that lotus flower, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cooling as a lotus flower, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. Yata Rishikesha Kalena Devaki Kangsena Rudati Charam Sucharpita Vimochitaham Cha Samatma Jabibo Twayaiva Nate Namahor Vipadganat. O Rishikesha, Master of the senses and Lord of lords, you have released your mother Devaki, who was long imprisoned and distressed by the envious King Kamsa, and me and my children from a series of constant dangers. What are those constant dangers? Duryodhana tried to kill the Pandavas in so many ways. Pandavas are the sons of Kunti. 3 of the Pandavas are seminal sons of Kunti, because she was one of the queens of King Pandu. And the 2 younger boys, Nakul and Sahadev, were the sons of her co-wife, what's her name? Maitreyi? Huh? Madri, thank you, very good. So Madri performed, they discussed between themselves, Madri and Kunti, that Madri would do the sati rite of walking into the fire, but one of them had to remain back to take care of the 5 sons. So they decided that would be Kunti, because for a chaste wife, the heat of the fire of her husband's funeral pyre is not as hot as the fire of separation. So she very happily walks into the fire. These days, when wives are not so chaste and husbands are not worthy of having chaste wives, the Indian society was forcing it for a long time, forcing the women to go in the fire, but that is stopped now. So what were they? He gave them a palace, but it was made of shellac. And then he set fire to it, and the whole palace burnt. But Krishna saved them.
Oh,
Huh?
sorry.
Duryodhana. And then there were so many other dangers, like the cheating dice match, the attempt to disrobe Draupadi, poisoning, Bhima. So, Vishan Mahagane Purushada Darshanat Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichata Mrde mrde neka maharata shruto drona shrutas chasma hare virakshita. Now she's getting into details. My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, Asatsabaya. That's great, so-called great kings and princes and warriors. They were all in this Asatsabaya. Asat means this assembly of crude and rude men who happily witnessed the attempted derobement of Draupadi. And again, loosening her hair, which is a great insult for a lady. But we know what happened. We found out yesterday. What happened as a reaction? Krishna killed so many men in the battle of Kurukshetra who were the enemies of the Pandavas and all their wives, because a widow has to let down her hair. She lets down her hair and she wears white. So they all had to let down their hair. Nobody can mess with Krishna's devotees and get away with it. And Krishna protects the devotees anyway. From the vicious assembly, from the sufferings during our exile. Is there another mic? This one ran out. Or it needs to be plugged in. One or the other. Sufferings during our exile in the forest and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Asvatthama. What was that? Yes. Kunti is the mother of the Pandavas, and her granddaughter, Uttara, had Parikshit Maharaj, her great-grandson, in Uttara's womb. And Krishna covered the womb with his own spiritual power and saved him. So this is a very important verse coming up. What is this, Vasanti, on the screen? Viparashanti tassa swat tatra tatra jagat guru bhavato darshanam yat apunar bhava darshanam. I wish that all these calamities, so they were calamities, but now the calamities are over, and now we're no longer getting your darshan. Better to have the calamities and have you with us than to have you leave and to have no calamities. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we no longer see repeated births and deaths. So Kunti is a resident of Dwarka or Hastinapur, and although Krishna is her like a nephew, she knows that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the difference between the residents of Dwarka and the residents of Vrindavan. Even though Krishna does more wonderful activities in Vrindavan than in Dwarka and Hastinapur, still they never understand that he's God. Whereas Kunti here, she's partially sees him as her nephew and partially sees him as God. Janmai swarya sruta sribir edamanam madakpuman naivar hatyam abhidhatum by tamakinchana gochara. My Lord, your lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. That is, one who's going after material things cannot approach the Lord. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, 4 things: great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. So, the four are Janma. Janma means good birth. Aiswarya, opulence. Shruta, education. And Srivi means beauty. Namo kinchana vitaya nirita gunavrittaye atmaramaya shantaya kaivalaya pate namaha. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property. This is a continuation of the last, the mood of the last verse. Who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are most gentle and the master of the monists. Why is he the master of the monists? That's strange. Let's see.
Monasticism and personal
Where?
history. A monasticism and personal history.
Yeah, a monist is an impersonalist. So I guess they don't realize that he's their master. He's everyone's master. I'm just trying to skim the, all right, I see it. So in the purport, it says, the unalloyed devotees of the Lord are transcendentally attached to one another. Oh, the unalloyed devotees and the Lord are transcendently attached to one another. For others, the Lord has nothing to reciprocate, and therefore he is called Atmarama, or self-satisfied. With the gopis, because they are so attached to him, he's not at all Atmarama in relation with them, self-satisfied. He feels himself unsatisfied until he can get their association. Then it continues, such monists, he's the master of all monists who seek to merge into the existence of the Lord. Such monists merge within the personal effulgence of the Lord called Brahma Jyoti. So he's still the master because they want to merge into his effulgence and become nothing or become one with him, lose their individual existence, become God, various desires like that. But the devotees enter into the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which are never to be misunderstood as material. So the devotees enter the pastimes and they just, monists enter his effulgence, but still he's the master of both, controller. Manye tvam kalami shanam anari nijanam vibhum samancharantum sarvatra putanam yanmata kali. When I was young, like some of you, I used to know all these verses, but because I didn't repeat them continually or regularly year by year, so now I don't remember them. Just little bits here and there. So that shows the importance of regularly repeating the verses you're learning. O Lord, I consider your lordship as eternal time, the supreme controller, without beginning and end, the all-pervasive one, but still he has a beautiful form. In distributing your mercy, you are equal to everyone. The dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse. That is, you have nothing to do with, really, he's eternal time, the supreme controller, no beginning or end, everywhere. He's equal to everyone. And if people are fighting with each other, I remember reading this years ago that it has to do with like bamboos in a forest, they rub against each other and the friction creates fire. So due to social intercourse, people get disruptive with each other. Naveda kaschid bhagavangscha kirshitam tvavehamanasya nrinam vidambanam yasya kaschid daitosti karachit dveshyascha yasmin vishamamatirnanam. O Lord, no one can understand your transcendental pastimes, which appear to be human and are so misleading. You have no specific object of favor. You have no object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. And Krishna confirms that in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm equal to everyone, I'm partial to none, but those who are devoted to me, I'm a friend to him and he's a friend to me. Others who are not his devotees, it says here, Kunti says that he doesn't reciprocate with them, but he reciprocates with them like through the material energy, indirectly. Janma karma cha visvatman ajasyat kartur atmanaha tiryan nirshishu yadasu tad atyanta vidambanam. Of course it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work though you are inactive, and that you take birth though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend among animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering. He takes so many incarnations among the animals, and like fish, he became Matsya the fish, Kurma the tortoise, Nishringa the half lion, the boar, Varaha. But he's not born at all. He's inconceivable. Srila Prabhupada says that if God does not have some inconceivable things, then how can he be God? But inconceivable means that he's not conceivable by unqualified persons. Gopyadade tvayi krita kasidamatavat yate drishashu kali lananja sambраmaksham bhaktram niniya bhaya bhavanaya stitasya samam vimohati bhayad bhaveti. Oh, my dear Krishna, Jashoda took up a rope to bind you when you committed an offense, and your perturbed eyes overflooded with tears, which washed the mascara or cudgel from your eyes. And you were afraid, though fear personified is afraid of you. This sight is bewildering to me. Kechid ahora jamjatam punya shlokasya kirtaye yado priya shaman baye malayasve vachandanam. Some say that the unborn is born for the glorification of the pious kings. And others say that he is born to please King Yadu, one of your dearest devotees. You appear in his family as sandalwood appears in the Malaya Hills. Now, what does that mean? Let's find out. Let's see about the Malaya sandalwood.
Is just like the sun.
Hmm?
It's like halfway down.
Halfway down, second page. Okay, so he is known as Yadava, Yaduvara, Yaduvira, Yadunandan, etc., although he's always independent of such obligation. Let me go back further. Maharaj Nala was also celebrated as a great king, but he had no connection with Krishna. Therefore, Maharaj Yudhisthira is meant here to be glorified by Lord Krishna, by his birth in that family. He had also glorified King Yadu, having taken his birth in the family. He is known as Yadava, Yaduvir, Yadunandan, etc., although he is always independent of such obligation. He is just like the sandalwood that grows in the Malaya hills. Trees can grow anywhere and everywhere. Yet, because the sandalwood trees are mostly in the area of the Malaya hills, the name sandalwood and the Malaya hills are interrelated, like Malaya sandalwood. Therefore, the conclusion is that Krishna is unborn like the sun, yet he appears as the sun rises on the eastern horizon. As the sun is never the sun of the eastern horizon, so the Lord is no one's son, but he's the father of everything that be. Apare vasudevasya devakyam yachitopaya pyagat ajastam ashiche maya vadaya chasuradvisham. Others say that since Vasudeva and Devaki prayed for you, you have taken birth as their son. Undoubtedly, you are unborn, yet you take birth for their welfare and to kill those who are envious of the demigods. She's going different theories, one after another. Bhadavataranyanye. Wait, let's do that again. Bhadavataranyanye. Bhuvo navahivo dadao. Sedantya bodhibarena chato hyatma bhuvartita. Others say that the world, being overburdened like a boat at sea, is much aggrieved, and that Brahma, who is your son, prayed for you, and so you appeared to diminish the trouble. This is a very, very important. It shows how smart she is. Bhaveshmin kleshamananam avidya kama karma bi shravana smaranarhani karisyani tikechana. Yet others say that you appeared for the sake of rejuvenating the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshiping, and so on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs might take advantage and gain liberation. So these first few words, Bhava Asmin, Bhaveshmin, Klishamananam, of those who are suffering from avidya, kama, karma bi. Very interesting. Bhavesmin kleshamananam avidya karma karma bi. Kama karma bi. So here's the sequence. By avidya, ignorance, turning away from Krishna, we develop lust. And from lust comes karmic activities, sinful activities, or pious, but they're all two sides of the same coin. Thus, Bhaveshman, the conditioned souls, are born in this material existence and suffer various miseries. So turning away from Krishna and having lust, which is a perverted reflection of love of Krishna, they engage in karma, and thus they suffer the sinful reactions by taking birth again and again in the material world. So why did I say she's so smart? Because Prabhupada said that mundane scientists are spending millions of dollars and so much energy to find out what is the cause of this material world, cause of creation. And she says it in 2 lines. Bhaveshman klishamananam avidya kama karmavi. So Krishna comes, Shravana Smaranarhani, Krishna comes to give those people the opportunity to rejuvenate their devotional service by hearing, chanting, worshiping. Rejuvenate doesn't mean they were ever pure devotees and they forgot about it. It's just material language doesn't fill the bill. Shravanti gayanti granantya bhikshnasa smaranti nandanti tavehitam jana ta eva pashyantya chidena tavakam pava pravaho paramam padam bhujam. O Krishna, those who constantly hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities or take pleasure in others doing so certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. But what I don't get is who are those who take pleasures in others doing so? Because, you could take pleasure in someone else chanting and repeating, but how can you take pleasure in when others are hearing without your hearing? Do we find the answer anywhere in the purport? Well, maybe somebody can find it during the day and then we'll discuss it tomorrow. Apyadanastvam swakritehi prabho. That's not the right tune. Apyadanastvam swakritehi prabho. Chitasisi svetsurdo nirjivana. Chesham nachanyat pavitak padambuja. Parayanam rajasu jyotis. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? Though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when the kings are at enmity with us. Okay, so we won the war, but who's going to tell what's going to happen next? And you're leaving us now? Excuse me? So what does she mean by this? The Pandavas are most fortunate because with all good luck, they were entirely dependent on the Lord, mercy. So where does it talk about they're worried that some new things might happen? Now it's because there's so many kings that are left alive and they're in enmity. The war is over, but who knows what's going to happen? Well, I can't see it right now, but if somebody would like to find it, you're welcome to. Here, I think this might be it. After the battle of Kurukshetra, which is now, although the inimical kings were killed, this is it, they have sons and grandsons. And like Aswatthama, he never learns his lesson, who are still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who are put into conditions of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition. Who likes me? Who's my friend? Who's my enemy? Prabhupada said, everyone is looking, who's my friend and who's my enemy? But they're both sitting within you, the mind. So the best way to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord, best way is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord, and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. And back in 1993, I believe it was, I told Gurudev, I seem to spend half my time judging others and the other half of my time worrying that I'm being judged by others. So he said, best not to have any time for that by being merged into the bhajans. Kevaryam nama rupabhyam yadubi sahapandava pavato darshanam yarhi rishikesham aveshtitu. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and the Yadus, will end at once. In other words, whatever good stuff happened to us, it's all you. And if you don't glance on us, everything's going to go wrong. So don't leave. So interestingly, here in the next verse, he calls Krishna Gadadhar. So we know Gadadhar is the associate of Lord Chaitanya. So how is Krishna Gadadhar? We will find out. Nayam sobisyate tatra yate dani Gadadhara tatpadar ankita bhati swalakshana vilakshitai. O Gadadhar, Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful. But when you leave, it will no longer be so.
It doesn't explain Gadadhar.
It doesn't explain Gadadhar. So Gada has two meanings. One is club, and one is flute, surprisingly. Okay, next verse.
Didi, have you heard any purports as to why, if that Gadadhar is referring to Chaitanya in any way?
No, it's Krishna. Gadadhar is Radharani.
In Lord Chaitanya's.
In Lord Chaitanya's Leela. Ime Janapadash Shridha Supakshvanu Sadivaruda Vanadrinadyudanvanto Ye Dante Tava Vikshata. All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits. The rivers are flowing. The hills are full of minerals, and the oceans full of wealth. And this is all due to your glancing over them. On the contrary, on the converse, at the beginning of the Battle of Kurukshetra, when Krishna pointed, like Arjuna said, okay, so here we are in the middle of the army. So who am I supposed to fight with in this great trial of arms? So Krishna said, him, 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 him. So by looking at them and pointing to them, that decreased their duration of life and they had to die in the war. So it was all arranged by Krishna, not Arjuna or the Pandavas. So now we're going to do the last verse for today. Then I'll ask if there's questions. Ata vishvesha vishvatam man vishvamorte sakeshu me sneha pashamimam chindi tridam pandu suvrishnisu. O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please therefore sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen. Very interesting verse. Even though they're devotees, I don't want to be attached to them. I want to just be attached to you. The Pandavas and the Vrishnis, because you're everything. He's the Lord of the universe. He's the soul of the universe. He's the personality of the form of the universe. Because what was his universal form? Just some very shadowy expansion of him. sever my tie of affection. And she's going to go on in the same mood in the next couple of verses, so I'm not going to stop here. Tvaye me nanya vishaya matir madhu pate sakrit vatim udva hatad ada gange vogam madan vate. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows towards the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. Very interesting. That's a good one to end at, because in the next verse, that's the last prayer. Next verse, Krishna is replying. Okay, so Queen Kunti ki jai. Any questions or comments? We have 4 minutes. Oh, we didn't do the verses glorifying the Bhagavatam today. We can do them tomorrow. Any questions or comments? No? Oh, yes.
So you had said to maybe look in the purport to discuss to compound upon the statement taking pleasure in others hearing and chanting. So Guru takes so much pleasure when we hear, right? I'm just trying to understand. So, and then also when we hear you speaking kata, I'm taking so much pleasure.
But you're hearing, and the verse said, one who takes pleasure in others' hearing.
Yeah, and then you take pleasure in us hearing you.
I think in the purport, it said.
I was hoping to find something in the purport.
Yeah.
It said it started with.
I mean, we can relate anything to it.
No.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it, but it said that everything the Supreme Personality of Godhead says is transcendental, and it starts with a Pandavas hearing from Lord Krishna. And then it goes on. I'll find it.
But that doesn't say those who take pleasure in others' hearing. That's the question. Tomorrow is another day. We can do it tomorrow. All right. So any other questions, comments, ifs, ands, buts? You found it?
Yeah. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah. But could you come here?
Over there?
Come here.
So they can hear you.
So the people on the Zoom can hear you.
There are different transcendental activities of the Lord, and each and every one of them is competent to bestow the desired result, provided the hearing process is perfect. In the
Slower.
Bhagavatam,
Slower.
in the Bhagavatam, the activities of the Lord begin from his dealings with the Pandavas. There are many other pastimes of the Lord in connection with his dealings with the Asuras and others. And in the 10th canto, the sublime dealings with his conjugal associates, the gopis, as well as with his married wives at Dwarka are mentioned. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference in the transcendental nature of each and every dealing of the Lord. But sometimes people in unauthorized hearing process take more interest in hearing about his dealings with the gopis. Such an inclination indicates the lusty feelings of the hearer. So a bona fide speaker of the dealings of the Lord never indulges in such hearings. One must hear about the Lord from the very beginning, as in the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scriptures, and that will help the hearer attain perfection by progressive development. One should not therefore consider that his dealings with the Pandavas are less important than his dealings with the gopis. We must always remember that the Lord is always transcendental to all mundane attachment. In all the above mentioned dealings of the Lord, he is the hero in all circumstances, and hearing about him or about his devotees or combatants is conducive to spiritual life. It is said that the Vedas and Puranas, etc., are all meant to revive our lost relation with him. Hearing all of these scriptures is essential.
That's very good glorification of hearing,
Yeah.
but it doesn't answer that one phrase in the verse, those who take pleasure in others' hearing. But it seems like it's not in the purport. Right?
There's more.
What?
There's more, but we can save it
By
for
tomorrow. Okay. As Madhusudan Prabhu was indicating there are many ways to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're ending here. But whatever it is, hearing is glorifiable. And also this statement about some unauthorized persons refuse to hear anything but about the gopis, but they're unauthorized hearers, something like that you were saying. And that's due to lust. So that's for a specific reader. When readers become more advanced, then because the scriptures are like desire trees. You can get anything you want. And what's meant for someone now is not meant for the same person later. And what's meant for one person now is not meant for another person. So when a person reaches a certain level of advancement, then he will, if his swarup or spiritual constitutional form is in Madhurya Ras or the conjugal mellow, then he will only want to hear about the gopis, and that will not be unauthorized. Because these are rules for people coming to Raganuga Bhakti, that he'll only want to hear that. So these instructions are for like Prabhupada's books are for the whole world, but they're not meant for all people for all times. I hope no one misunderstands that out there in Facebook land. Okay, so Panchakalpatarubhyastra Kabisandubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitai